Were you good at these games growing up? Did you have a favorite?
Especially a marble game. Yeah.
Oh, sure, yeah.
One very special detail on set could have helped the Squid Game players survive. From giant dolls to mind-bending stairs inspired by a piece of art, the team behind Squid Game went all out with their sets. While CGI is used to create or complete certain images, many of the sets and backdrops seen in Squid Game were fabricated just for the show. This is extra impressive because some of the real sets look like they could be created by computers with just how mesmerizing and exciting they look, especially when the backdrops appear to be outdoor locations. Tug of War might seem like a simple enough game to film, but the team behind the Netflix hit opted to build a large space and the raised platforms used in the game from scratch. The space created managed to be the perfect base for the actors to perform on, and to add CGI effects afterwards to make the space seem as daunting as it feels for the actors. Every inch had to be precisely built to ensure the safety of the performers while doing such physical work.
되게 황홀했어요. 그 공간 안에 들어간 순간.
The dorms the players stay in during Squid Game may be the dullest colored set, but it's certainly not the least impressive. The gray walls and metal bunk beds aren't so inviting or comforting, but they definitely set the scene and make an impact. The size of the space was so vast that for the performers, it could feel like they were in a coliseum. The dorm space is where so much happens. A major fight, learning the truth of the game, watching the money add up, and the prison-like aesthetic provided the ideal backdrop for these pivotal moments.
If you do not wish to participate, then please let us know at this time.
Not a single detail was overlooked when the art department and creative team worked to bring all the spaces we see in Squid Game to the screen. One very small but meaningful detail, one that even could have helped the players out a bit, was hiding in plain sight on the walls.
사실 기대와 상상을 하는 것 이상으로 충격적인 비주얼들이 펼쳐지더라고요.
We don't see them in the first part of the series, but as players lose and there isn't a need for so many beds, we slowly see the images revealed. All the illustrations on the walls depict each of the games played throughout the series. The fact that the bunk beds were in tall stacks was no coincidence either. The art director thought them up to convey themes of abandonment and carrying emotional baggage. They were actually made out of the same material as tunnels. The colorful and unsettling sets of staircases we see in Squid Game were actually inspired by a famous piece of art called Relativity. The original image came from the mind of a Dutch artist named MC Escher. The Squid Game creative team felt the mind-bending picture would be the perfect addition to the series, and they weren't wrong. The original photo includes 7 stairways arranged in a world where gravity is different, and considering Squid Game really turns every player's life upside down whether they want it to or not, the homage paid to this classic piece of art makes a lot of sense and just adds to the genius of the show.
Whoa, this place is gigantic.
A part of what makes these sets so incredible is the sheer scale of them. The space of the children's playground for the Honeycomb game featured real, enormous versions of playground equipment, with a fake drawn sky background making the whole scene look like an image we'd see in a children's book. It did an incredible job at bringing us a freaky playground vibe. The large-scale equipment also helped with making the players feel like children, replicating what the environment would have looked like to them when they were young. The team definitely accomplished the formidable but also familiar and reminiscent of childhood look that director Hwang was hoping to achieve.
So our options are circle, triangle, star, umbrella.
We can't discuss the incredible sets without mentioning one very impactful prop. If that's what we call a creepy giant doll that had the power to take any player out that it saw moving. The red light, green light doll is a major part of the scene for the initial game and shockingly wasn't created just for the show. Yes, this terrifying giant mugunghwa doll actually existed before and was displayed for the public to see at a museum adventure village in South Korea. The doll is back in its original home since the production wrapped, so people can see this amazing piece of the Squid Game story in person. It seems like the games were tough for the doll as well, since it now is inexplicably missing one of its hands. Some cast members were actually speechless when they were on set for the first time, thrilled by the fact that they'd get to interact and perform in these incredible spaces. The actor who plays number 1 had a really intense nostalgic reaction when he was on set where the marbles game takes place.
부수치기도 저도 했어요. 어렸을 때 해서 그 생각도 나고.
All the houses and streets we see were built from the ground up. No small feat, but so worth the final, incredible product. The set had the power to transport the cast members themselves to other places, so it's no surprise they've completely captured us. For director of the series Hwang, it was important to build an authentic world so the team could more easily tell the story truthfully, meaning not a lot of CGI ended up being used. Not a corner was cut, and the Squid Game team decided to really build everything we see. Oftentimes, extremely large versions, which only added to the impressive production. One of the coolest examples of a non-CGI shot is the very first game, Red Light, Green Light, where there were actually over 400 performers on the set playing the game. Oftentimes, in scenes like these, loads of people end up being added in with CGI, but since the set itself was so enormous, they were able to accommodate a massive cast and crew.
Over there. Looks really freaky.
For the performers, seeing the sets for the first time blew them away, and they needed to capture the magic.
첫날 아침에 이제 세트장을 들어가면은 사진 찍기 바빠요.
The cast had, of course, had time with the script for a while before they arrived to film, and when reading, naturally thought up of what the sets were going to look like. For the most part, it was not at all what they'd expected, and some actors were even caught off guard, shocked that these incredible spaces existed and that they were the lucky actors who got to perform on them. For other actors, the set felt a bit like a fantasy or dream world. The colors and childlike structures are surprising and catch audiences off guard in a fantastic way as well. The sheer scale of it all was overwhelming, but the performers managed to fill the space right up with their incredible acting. With so many interesting locations, it's a bit surprising that the whole production is filmed in just one city. About an hour outside of Seoul, South Korea is Daejeon. This city has been the home base for many South Korean productions and is now home to Squid Game, where so much magic was created. Since there wasn't any big traveling being done, the budget for the set could be a bit higher and the team took advantage of it. These creations were far from cheap.
Action!
There was just as much action behind the scenes as on screen, with camera people running around and intense visual effects being produced live. The glass stones ending definitely caught us off guard, but the process to capture the way it surprised Gion, Se-byuk, and Sang-woo was an extensive one. Filming, the actors only had a small amount of glass explode near them. The slow-motion feeling really comes through in how the actors perform. After capturing shots of the trio, each got to do their close-up work with singles as well. It may be a short moment, but plenty of hours were put into capturing every nuance and angle. When time came for the big visual of the glass stepping stones we see exploding, the team didn't resort to CGI for the shards of glass, except for the ones that appeared to harm the players and fly towards the camera. They actually went ahead and created the whole sequence in studio. These practical effects look unreal on the set. It's no surprise it translates to such a powerful and stunning visual in the episode.
Hello players, let me welcome you all to the 5th game.
The cast of Squid Game dove right in when playing glass stepping stones and definitely didn't have it easy since for many, it was actually terrifying to film. While CGI came into play in terms of establishing the setting and just how high in the air the players were, much of the carnival-like set was fully built. Even the glass. Fortunately, no one actually went through shattering glass, instead landing on a board supported by crew to allow the actor to fall safely. In the show, the set that Red Light, Green Light takes place on already seems awfully crowded with the nearly 500 players, but on the set, there were even more folks, making it a pretty chaotic yet well-organized space. We would have thought CGI was used to add the bodies of those who lost during the game, especially the piles of people at the doors, but the actors all actually stayed wherever they were when they lost the game, which couldn't have been very comfortable. When it came to filming close-ups, multiple cameras were used to capture the performances, and the filming crew was often running along with the players. The added detail of using a red marker to signal when a person took a shot is evident of just how thorough and meticulous the team was. No one could get away with cheating during the game either. If one person moved out of time, "We're looking at you, Sang-woo," then everyone had to start over.
Today's game is Tug of War.
The performers did not have it easy playing the often physically demanding games when filming the series, since they really were going through the struggle depicted on screen. The sweat, effort, and even chained handcuffs securing them to the rope were real. There definitely couldn't be much movement between takes since everyone was literally tied up together. With a scene like this, there isn't really any other way to do it than at 100%.
Move up or you die!
Maybe one of the most terrifying, gasp-worthy moments in the show is seeing Gyeon hanging between safety and the end of the game for his whole team. The tension is real, even though the platform they were on was just 1.5 meters off the ground. While swinging on a rope is usually pretty fun, this collective rope swing down tells a very different story and shows just how far the actors and production went to bring the best footage to the screen.
My god, I can't believe how cool that was!
The moment after the most intense tug-of-war we've ever seen is so still, but we can see just how exhausted each and every actor is, having just struggled and fought for their lives, literally. This shot is definitely needed as a moment of pause after the insane game just played, resulting in so many lives lost. This is also a bit of a moment of reckoning. This was hard, but whatever was coming next would only be harder, and they knew it.
You know what? I really thought we were going to die out there.
For the final face-off, the soundstage was a lot emptier with just Gyeon and Sang-woo competing. But there were many camera people, often filming using handheld video cameras to capture all the frantic action. Not only that, their crew made it rain, making the whole scene just as dramatic as the gruesome fight we see in the final cut. As filming went on, the two actors only got more disheveled, with rain soaking through and blood effects added throughout the battle. In order to get all the footage they needed, the actors had to be on point at every moment.
I won't let you leave here with that money.
The honeycomb scenes looked pretty similar on set as they did in the show. With the exception of the childlike drawn wallpaper, the rest of the set was filled with giant playground equipment and the smell of freshly made dalgona, the Korean honeycomb sweet. Luckily, the actors didn't have to listen to the actual loud noise each time a bullet was fired, as someone on set was in charge of giving a shout to indicate the moment instead, so the performers had a solid, unified cue to react to. Behind the scenes, we get a glimpse of just how hands-on the director was when it came time to shoot. Surprisingly, the cavernous, cool space where we see the confrontation between the police officer and a team member of the Squid Game is real. The opening on the top of the cave and the murky pool made the ideal setting. No doubt the actors felt totally immersed in the story. Shooting these scenes were pretty simple. All they needed were a couple of cameras, the right costumes, and the actors' chilling performances.
Do you want to die?
The glimpses we get of the players' lives before the game offer such a colorful backstory, especially when we see them with their families. Each of these scenes were shot quite intimately and simply, focusing on the narrative and what these relationships meant to the player, which translated to the screen beautifully. It's also one of the only times we get to see a typical everyday aesthetic, making the stark contrast between the real world and the Squid Game world even more apparent.
So which color do you want to play as?
How could we forget the original Squid Game? Filming this scene may have been one of the simplest setups, using an existing playground space. It only adds to the realism of the show and offers a great reminder of where the players started, as innocent children playing games for fun, instead of their lives.
At that moment, I felt as if I owned the entire world.
Hanging out in the dorms between games certainly wasn't any less stressful than the games themselves. The bare-bones set with the cool industrial edge does the trick, and the feeling of the daunting space comes through the screen. What we saw in the show was almost exactly what was happening on set, with all the added cameras and crew people, of course.
We can't fall asleep tonight, okay? Who knows what someone else may try.
Many moments in the Marbles game bring intense connection and emotion. The way they shot these scenes was a pretty stark difference from so many of the large and intense games. The fact that the actors were in a small space together with just a few crew members around really helps the intimacy come through and offers us the chance to get up close and personal with these characters and the short but meaningful relationship they have playing marbles.
We'll go around this whole town and take all the marbles, okay?
One of the reasons the Marbles game is so effective is because of just how well the setting transports us to the alleys of a small village. It makes sense that this is the set the team spent the most time building. Every detail, down to the stunning backdrops, moves us. It's no surprise they got the performances they did. The authenticity of this world is remarkable.
My wife and I have this one here.
너무 어려웠어.
The cast of Squid Game had to commit 100% to intense requirements, including gaining weight, enduring extreme conditions, and total confidentiality. The amount of physical stamina the actors in Squid Game show is pretty incredible, and what makes it more impressive is the fact that it's all real. The actors in the show had to stay extremely fit, so when they weren't working hard on set, they had to be working out at the gym to make sure they'd be able to achieve what was needed. Everything from being able to jump far enough during glass stepping stones, pulling during tug-of-war, or hanging onto the rope as it fell off the edge, battling other players viciously. All of this required a ton of strength and agility, so everyone had to make sure they were in top form and able to perform the impressive feats multiple times on demand. Filming for Squid Game didn't exactly happen from 9 to 5 every day. Depending on the needs of the scene, the actors sometimes had extremely early morning calls, or they began late and worked all through the night. Many hours were spent on set, and each one was precious, making these long days very intense and exhausting for the actors. Not to mention the crew who arrived first and were the last to leave.
여기서 우리를 내보내주는 겁니다.
With such crazy hours, we would expect plenty of nice long breaks for the cast when they were on set to rest and recover. While they did have a Netflix budget, time is money, and any breaks taken while filming had to be short to make sure they didn't fall behind schedule. So many of the scenes required a huge setup and cleanup afterwards, so they had to be very diligent about timing and getting the takes right efficiently.
네, 안녕하세요. 오징어 게임에서 준호 역할 맡은 위하준입니다.
If any of the actors received an individual interview request, it was a no-go unless first cleared by the production team. With such a major show and all the Netflix hype, the performers of Squid Game have rocketed to worldwide stardom, and loads of fans want to hear more from them. The producing team for the K-drama was on top of everything though, marketing the show, taking care of their artists, and making sure everything went according to plan. It might seem intense, but running a show this big takes a lot of organization and work. It's evident the Squid Game crew is pretty incredible at what they do.
반갑습니다.
While everyone in the cast had to work out and stay in shape in order to perform each day, the actor who played Deok-soo had to start work earlier since he also needed to gain nearly 40 pounds as well. It was really important in the show for his character to have a large physical build, and this was definitely one rule not broken. This intense physical transformation did come at a cost though. The combination left the actor exhausted, really feeling the effects on set in his body, but he continued to push his limits every day. His body couldn't quite take it anymore when filming Tug of War. Between takes, the always tough Deok-soo was throwing up from physical exertion and discomfort. Even after filming wrapped, the actor continued to experience negative effects. When these actors were cast, contracts had to be signed, and those included strict confidentiality agreements. The actors had to be tight-lipped and discreet about the show, making sure not to give away any details, even if they seemed insignificant. As we know from watching Squid Game, pretty well nothing we see doesn't have some other meaning. While they were working on such an exciting show and may have wanted to share stories from the set, the only people the cast could talk about their work to were other cast members. The secrets of the set even had to be kept from their closest friends and family. After a long, hard day's work, plenty of people want to have a drink and let off some steam. But not everyone is in the cast of Squid Game. The Sae-byuk actress is pretty used to the model lifestyle. Late nights, big parties, great drinks, and she loves it.
내가 술을 좋아해.
The actress was often eager to go out after work, but her invites to fellow castmates typically were declined since the actors had physically, mentally, and emotionally intense work to do every day. They couldn't afford to have anything negatively affect them. Anupam Tripathi may be a breakout Netflix star, but he's also still an acting student. The performer was filming full-time for Squid Game while also devoting significant time to his thesis. His show schedule filming was hectic enough itself, so adding all the extra work that comes with working on a thesis during supposed downtime definitely makes for a tough experience.
I had to finish my thesis also, but still it's going on. Let's see how it turned out.
Tripathi had to make sure neither would conflict with the other, so he could stay focused, all the while giving 100% to both. He was definitely worn pretty thin by the end, but fortunately, he loves what he does and has a great attitude about being a student of acting forever. Just another reason to be impressed by this amazing performer.
그 게임 통해서 사느냐 죽느냐 그거 선택하는 거죠.
Is it just us, or are the rules of the actual Squid Game pretty confusing? Whether or not the actors had actually played or known these games during their childhoods, everyone got pretty familiar with the activities by the end of filming. These performers couldn't just act out what they were doing and have stunt doubles come in and take over when the time came for the intense games. Every actor had to really understand how to play. They weren't messing around. Even the Dalgona honeycomb candies were real. Definitely a tricky one, especially for those unfortunate players in the umbrella category. There were plenty of scenes when the actors' real-life fear was perfect for the cameras, like the overwhelming energy in the tug-of-war or the trembling hands during the honeycomb game. However, there were moments that actors had to be up close and personal with danger, whether it was facing a weapon or trying not to move while their hearts were racing during red light, green light. It was vital for the actors not to flinch, no matter how exhausted or nervous they may have been in overwhelming scenes, in order to capture what needed to happen. The VIP room holds a lot of strange vibes, from all of its guests being masked to the real human-animal hybrid living statues. These aren't shockingly realistic props. The actors who were cast as these roles were required to be covered in full body paint and behave still as statues. Their eerie presence is incredible, and they really make an impact, even if they are just in the background.
Just tell us about the next game.
The Sae-byuk actress isn't from the same region as her character is in the show, so she had to make sure to hide her own accent as it's different from how she needed to sound. Before she started filming, the actress had to work diligently with an accent coach to help her sound authentic, and throughout filming, it was something she always had to keep an ear out for, since the wrong accent would be noticeable to anyone who knew the region, and it would have broken the illusion of realism we get throughout the show.
넌 여기서 돈 가지고 나가면 뭐 할 건데?
Who knew that a game this deadly could look this good? Quite a bit went into the fashion behind Squid Game, from an actor refusing to dye his hair to its symbolic costumes.
환영합니다.
Ho-yeon Chung, who plays Kang Se-byuk in the show, is known for being one of the top fashion models in her career, and her stunning looks have won her awards. Obviously, it would not be that realistic if Chung would still look glamorous while competing in the titular game. So, the actress had to go through quite the lengthy makeup process on set. This required the makeup team to make sure that Chung's hair would look messy, but not overly messy, while also having to apply fake scratches and bruises to her face. Ki-eun's red hair in his final scenes of Season 1 was actually something that was in the script, and not a choice that was made later on. Fans weren't the only ones taken aback by the choice, as Ki-eun himself. Lee Young-jae was also surprised by the choice as well. I talked to the director and asked why I should dye my hair red, because it's a color that ordinary men at Ki-eun's age don't do. I think it was a will to show actions that go beyond the limits that people think Ki-eun would never do. In the end, Young-jae didn't dye his actual hair red, but instead simply wore a wig. If I dye my hair red, I can't do anything else. Director Hwang Dong-hyuk thought long and hard about what Ki-eun would dye his hair in the season finale. I imagined being him and thought to myself, what is the color that you would never choose to dye your hair? Then I came to the conclusion that Ki-eun would never dye his hair red. It would be the craziest thing for him to do. So I chose the color and I thought it really showed his inner anger.
아니 저는 그거 생각도 안 하고 그냥 뭐
A lot of eyes were focused on the odd-looking masks worn by the soldiers that are all black, aside from the white shapes in the middle, which are either circles, squares, or triangles. The shapes on the masks were actually inspired by how ant colonies work, as ants follow a structure where each is given a specific duty and role. But from a distance, it's hard to tell the ants apart. Each shape on the mask has a different meaning, for a different obligation for each soldier. The circles represent workers, the triangles represent soldiers, and lastly, the squares represent managers.
저는 가면 디자인도 되게 많이 했었거든요. 감독님 아마 지금 잊으셨을 텐데 가면 디자인.
많이 했죠.
One of the most notable and noticeable wardrobe pieces in all of Squid Game is the teal tracksuits the players wear, complete with their number printed onto their chest, as well as white, strap-on, knockoff Vans tennis shoes. Underneath the costume, the characters wear white t-shirts with their numbers once again printed across their chest in the same teal color. The color scheme was a deliberate choice by the series director Hwang Dong-hyuk, who wanted the cast to have costumes that would contrast from the pastel-colored sets, and the red overalls worn by the staff. Such pretty colors for such a grim and mature series. One of the concepts that factored into the choice of the green jumpsuits was the fact that the creative team wanted the costumes to create more tension. Something more laid back and casual would feel out of place for a game of survival, while military-inspired battle armor would feel like something a bit more appropriate. Even the jackets and suits, worn in similar franchises, centering around deadly games such as The Hunger Games and Battle Royale, may have seemed like a more faithful fit. The combination between the more laid-back style, along with the high stakes of the deadly games, proved to be the winning strategy, helping create the show's offbeat and intense energy. Two of the most prominent colors throughout Squid Game are, of course, green and hot pink, which is obvious just from looking at the costumes. Director Hwang Dong-hyuk chose the color green for the jumpsuits, as it reminded him of what Korean high school students wore when he was young. The reasoning behind these two sides, not dressed individually, but instead as a group, was because Dong-hyuk wanted to convey the themes of conformity. The choice of the pink outfits worn by the staff wasn't just made because of how it'd look visually, but there is also a metaphorical reason as well. The soldiers are clad in hot pink, as the color is on the opposite side of the color wheel from the color of the teal jumpsuits. Another reason hot pink was used on their clothes was because director Hwang Dong-hyuk felt the color pink would elicit fear in a sense of irony, as pink is often a color used to convey sensitivity or sweetness. This is also why the walls of the hallway between the dorms and the game area are hot pink as well. While Western audiences may not be as familiar with South Korean idols, Hoyun is a close friend of Jennie from the K-pop group Blackpink. Hoyun was not the only one inspired by her friend, as the black and pink color scheme of the workers and the coffins also was a fun little callback to the group that was director Hwang Dong-hyuk's idea. That's a pretty lighthearted reference for such a dark show. The use of numbers on the jumpsuits was an intricate choice made by Hwang Dong-hyuk. The reasoning behind the clothing being marked with numbers over names was because the director wanted it to signify just how the oppressive force in the series is robbing the contestants of their identity. Each jumpsuit made for the series had a 3-digit number stitched to the chest, ranging from 1 to 456. The same number was also printed on all the t-shirts that the actors and actresses would wear under their jumpsuits. There has been plenty of internet speculation on why the guards are wearing red, unlike the green jumpsuits worn by the contestants and the hot pink jumpsuits worn by the staff. Red is often used to convey themes of battle and rage, which is one of the reasons why it was selected. Red was also used to symbolize the color of blood, and with all the fresh gunshot wounds that are present throughout the series, it is easy to see why it was chosen.
Your shift's over.
The hot pink costumes for the faceless masked men almost had a completely different look, according to director Hwang Dong-hyuk. Initially, Dong-hyuk wanted to give the characters uniforms that resembled that of a Boy Scout's. At first, I wanted a Boy Scout-like outfit, but it showed the men's figures too well.
전혀 두렵거나 공포스러운 대상이 아닌 것처럼 보여주고 싶은 느낌이 아마 종이의 집이랑 비슷해져서.
Before their final design, the black masks went through several design phases before settling on one that would be inspired by ant colonies. Art director Chae Kyung-sun revealed that they almost went even weirder with the mask designs, and that making the masks animal-themed was another idea that was thrown around. Kyung-sun was inspired by fencing masks, as well as the traditional Korean masks known as hayutao. She expressed that she needed to find a way so the masks could portray the characters exerting their class, but at the same time, the masks needed to be comfortable to wear and easy to see through. Director Hwang Dong-hyuk also requested that the black masks be foldable, much like that of the mouth of an ant. While animal masks may have proven to be creepy, there's no denying that the ominous final product added greatly to the unnerving nature of the show. Those shapes will never look the same way again. Chung's makeup process has even gone on to kickstart a trend on TikTok, where many users have attempted to create the makeup process for her character. From fake freckles, curtain bangs, a wolf cut, eyeshadow for eye bags, defining eyebrows, and perfecting a flushed, chapped lip. Some of the results have ended up looking strikingly similar to the actual show. Maybe these TikTok artists will be hired onto the makeup team if Netflix ever wanted to move forward with a season 2. And while Dong-hyuk may be denying a second season right now, it's hard to ignore just how big of a success it is.
How about you use your body to pay?
A what?
Many performers' real-life nerves turned out to be very handy on the set of Squid Game. The only thing worse than watching the intensely terrifying games played in Squid Game would be doing them. But that was the reality for the whole cast, who were often challenged mentally and physically with such difficult material.
뭔가 그래도 그 와중에 잃지 않는 인간성, 그것에 대한 희망.
If you haven't binged the entire Wild series yet, consider this your spoiler alert. One of the children's games with a twist played during Squid Game was Tug of War. A game that is hardly ever actually played, and when it is, usually by children. While the simple battle doesn't feel too high stakes, the consequences of losing this game were fatal. It was also very dangerous to film on set. The amped-up game of Tug of War was filmed while the actors were standing on raised platforms, so when one team lost, those people literally fell down and had a terrifying experience. Not only was it scary, there were definite risks of injury as they flew off these platforms, only further intensifying the energy of the scene.
My God, I can't believe how cool that was.
The creative team didn't want the actors to fake it, so everyone dove right in. While it was nerve-wracking, the actors had to commit to their performances fully, meaning all that strength exerted and sweat we see is 100% real.
Move up or you die!
On top of the danger elements, what we don't really consider is just how much more intense the game is when full-grown adults are playing. Luckily, no one was badly injured while filming.
You know what? I really thought we were going to die out there.
Filming the Glass Stones game was actually terrifying for many of the actors facing the nerve-wracking game. While they weren't set up at the death-defying height we see in the show, they were still about 1.5 meters up, and that height alone was enough to make nerves settle in. The performers were walking on pieces of plexiglass that could break from underneath them at any time. Before the time came to actually shoot the high-intensity scene, the actors' nerves were very present and they didn't go away while filming either. The game never got any easier, and while the actors' hesitance and worry about filming the sequence could have ruined the takes, it actually wound up being the best thing.
We're in hell here. There's no rules in hell.
The intensity of the frightening tasks was amplified and made these scenes even stronger. The camera doesn't lie, and was able to capture just how stiff and rigid the actors' bodies were, adding an extra layer of freaky realism to the scene as we saw them genuinely struggle to face their fears. Of course, filming on a precarious set was just one hurdle. Considering how intense the content was and how high the stakes were, psychologically, the actors definitely struggled with the whole process, and with very good reason. Luckily, it all worked out very well for the show. We absolutely feel the terror of these performers through the screen.
Oh, it's getting exciting.
Typically, when a production has stunts and scenes as risky and dangerous as what we see being done in the Squid Game, there are a whole crew of stunt doubles specially trained to face the danger safely and take over when the cameras were rolling. Practically, it makes sense. The stunt doubles need to be there to take center stage and perform so the actors don't risk injury. But in the case of Squid Game, the spotlight was on the performers. They may have been children's games, but these were some very adult versions. Falling from heights, exerting great physical strength, and terrifyingly stepping on glass stones that could break at any second was just another day at work for the Squid Game crew. This is a major testament to just how dedicated the cast and crew were to telling and depicting the story of the series as honestly as possible.
It's our lives we're betting on right now. And we gotta win.
The very first of the Squid Game installments was the simple childhood red light, green light game, and while it seems innocent enough, it was far from fun. Having to freeze was really tough since the performers had to pretend to be so terrified and worried they could lose their life because of the slightest movement at the wrong time. The environment really just made everything even more uncomfortable since there was such a large crowd dressed almost identically, really inspiring a bit of a freak mob mentality.
We're like a bunch of soldiers at training camp, huh?
There were moments filming for the actors that felt just a bit too much like real life, and mentally, the performers could struggle with negative and dark thoughts. This team committed to their craft and put so much of themselves into it that by the end of the day, many could feel depleted and overwhelmed by the experience, and some were just frustrated with their characters' choices and what they needed. The 218 actor even expressed extreme anxiety when preparing to do his role, but thanks to their awesome director, he felt confident in their work and the script and managed to perform.
가짜로 하는 게 아니라 진짜 그들이 느끼는 공포감이
The Squid Game premises is wild, and part of what makes it so unsettling is the freaky and intricate sets. The colors, shapes, and styles give off unnerving and creepy vibes, so it's no surprise that the first day the actors saw where they would be filming, their cameras were immediately whipped out to capture photos of it all.
굉장히 몽환적인 기분을 느낄 수 있을 정도로
While it may have seemed like a dream, more often than not, the circumstances felt like a total nightmare. Being on some of the bright and happy sets that induced a sort of feeling of fantasy could feel like being in a different world. But in conjunction with the disturbing content being depicted, the scenes became much worse to endure. The sheer range of realistic sets is impressive. The actors appeared to be outdoors or in the alleyways from when they were children, but it was all just an illusion, adding even more to the creep factor.
판타지적인 세상에 와 있는 것 같은데?
It's no surprise some of the actors felt mentally challenged and drained while working in these unnerving environments.
You saved me.
This show wouldn't have worked in bringing the gruesome and intense content to the screen had it not been for the director's vision. To make sure he could get the strongest reactions from the actors, the leader of the team made the performers feel safe enough to trust him on the journey. This allowed the intense approach they took by having all the actors do the games for real. Without the fatal consequences, of course. By placing the actors in overwhelming scenarios where their adrenaline would naturally run high, the team managed to capture some very honest and intense performances.
Why did you do that to us?
While the actors knew they wouldn't get any more money than just their paychecks for their performances, that didn't stop one actor from thinking about what he might do if he had the opportunity to play this unbelievable game in real life. The actor who plays the cop in the show might not go toe-to-toe with the other actors on set, but he's the most likely of them all to do the game in real life if given the chance. The actor has confirmed that he'd consider the daring task, with a cash reward that obviously can convince people to risk everything.
욕심 안 내고 사니까.
From leading roles, major brand sponsorships, millions of dollars, and global recognition, the actors of Squid Game have encountered opportunities they never could have imagined.
This might be a little bit bigger than my usual project.
She may have been a successful model before, but now Hoyeon is a global star. She can earn around $43,000 US per sponsored Instagram post, and she's working in partnership with huge brands like Adidas and Louis Vuitton. Definitely worth the investment for these companies since she's the most popular South Korean actress on Instagram.
저희가 많은 지금 사랑을 받고 있고 이런 제안도 많이 받고 있는데
While the wealth and popularity have had a huge effect on the Sae-byuk actress, she felt pretty changed as a person as well. Hoyeon grew very close to her character and had a hard time letting her go, sometimes feeling like Sae-byuk's voice comes through in her, always teaching and changing her for the better. Chung Jae didn't have Instagram before Squid Game, so he opened up an account and made his first post just a couple weeks after the show premiered and quickly gained over 4 million followers. The actor has been lurking on social media now that memes, photos, and fan theories for Squid Game have been taking over. And he's even found a light in the parody videos. The actor feels in terms of his career, the show's success hasn't done a lot for him, but the day-to-day has been very different because suddenly he's being recognized whenever he's out. The Gion actor is already busy at work on another project, and while he hasn't heard from any North American companies about doing a project with them, he's very open to the idea and would jump at the chance to travel and film overseas. The police officer on a mission has had quite the rise in popularity, and his cover of Men's Health Korea definitely helped. It's no surprise his follower count jumped from around 300,000 to about 9 million. His life didn't just change financially and professionally, though. He actually overcame a phobia of water after the show because of all the lessons and work he had to do for underwater filming in the series. It was a big step, but one that's been very worth it for the actor.
누구야? 당신.
Hae-soo is already busy and booked on other projects, including the film Ghost and 2 Netflix shows, Suriname and a Korean adaptation of another popular series, Money Heist. With a net worth of around 3 to 4 million, this actor is definitely earning his success. The biggest change since the show, though, would be his new role as a father to a baby nicknamed Baby Squid, who happened to be born the day the show premiered. Talk about a life turning upside down.
이게 되는 시간이 이제 한국 시간으로 4시 오후 4시였는데
The creator and director of Squid Game has been blown away by just how successful the program has been, and shocked by the fact that he could find this kind of success. It's of course been a pretty emotional time considering how quickly Squid Game rose to success, especially since he wrote the series over a decade ago. There has been a ton of demand for a second season, but Hwang had never actually planned on another one. However, there were some cliffhangers at the end of the first season, and fans have offered all sorts of amazing ideas and theories that have really inspired the director's thinking. While the pressure is definitely high, he's open and excited to potentially bring Squid Game back for another season.
There are still the ideas from the fans.
Player One, the mastermind behind Squid Game, was in control on the show, but in real life, he's been extremely overwhelmed with all the buzz around himself and the series. While he's been acting for many years, he's never gotten so many inquiries and offers. So his daughter had to start helping him run his career since he never had a manager who'd normally take care of these matters. The actor has already been offered starring roles in TV commercials and has had to turn some down. We can only imagine how many people would recognize him out in public if he did commercials as well. The actor only recently came to terms with just how tough it can be to be famous.
적든 크든 많이 받아왔잖아요.
The actor, originally from India, has become extremely popular and is getting way more recognition than he ever thought he would.
People are taking selfies, they want to take autographs.
And with the exposure has come the hope that maybe he could perform in India and in his own language. The journey he had to get to this point in his career is exceptional. He moved to Korea because he had a scholarship to study, and now he's worth around $500,000. We have a feeling his dream to perform in front of his hometown audience is pretty probable at this point.
Well, these days there's so many calls.
While the actor is now a self-proclaimed millionaire, after reaching 1 million followers on Instagram, his health did suffer in the process of making the show because of how quickly he bulked up and gained weight, resulting in him often being sick and really struggling during the strenuous days on set. He's still dealing with the ramifications of the intense body transformation, leaving him wary to take on any jobs that require him to gain that much weight so quickly. It hasn't all been bad though. The actor can make around $1,000 per sponsored Instagram post. The frontman actor in the series is actually one of the few South Korean actors who's established a reputation in Hollywood in the G.I. Joe films and Terminator Genesis. While in the States, he dealt with some racism on sets, but with the success of Squid Game, he hasn't given up on Hollywood yet, and he's still wanting to make films in the US. His growing popularity and central role as the mysterious frontman has given way to rumors that a second season could focus on his story. Our fingers are crossed.
Dream come true. So that's a great thing.
The VIPs in Squid Game were talked about, but not necessarily for the right reasons, since there's been a lot of criticism about their performances in the hit show. The actor who played VIP number 4 isn't too bothered by the negative reactions, since he's still been receiving a ton of recognition. The actor also gets fan mail, autograph requests, and one admirer even went so far as to tattoo both his real name and the character's name on her arm. Definitely not much to complain about. In his own words,
I'm in the most popular film in the history of television.
As for VIP number 2, all the flack wasn't so great, and he was pretty upset by the comments.
Mostly I just try to take what I can from the negativity or the criticisms.
VIP number 1 wasn't a fan of being dissed in reviews, but he's also aware of the stereotypes that exist in the entertainment industry for Westerners in South Korea. VIP 1 has mainly been advocating for actors like himself, making sure to explain that they do still have to go through a rigorous audition process to book a role, instead of just being picked up off the streets. The actor who played the slick recruiter in the series was actually one of the biggest names in the show. He rose to international fame when he did the film Train to Busan. His performance in the Netflix series earned him even more fans, and many of the Squid Game followers are hoping that he'll have a leading role if there's a second season. Perhaps the strangest change he's encountered since the show took off has been the fact that now, loads of people want to be slapped by him and aren't shy in letting the actor know. Performing since she was a teenager, Yumi is a seasoned actor now, but nothing prepared her for the rapid rise to fame. While she had an impressive 40,000 followers on Instagram before the show came out, she very quickly gained about 6 million more fans. Professionally, the ball is kept rolling, and she's already filming other projects, including a Netflix film called All of Us Are Dead. As for her personal life, Squid Game brought the actress one of her closest friends. She and Hoyeon talk to each other every day, having developed an incredible real-life friendship.
신이 점지해준 것 같은 그런 느낌을 받을 정도로.
The cast of Squid Game features a mix of incredible actors who got straight offers and unknown performers who blew the team away in their auditions, all of which made a major impression on fans.
진행시켜.
The model-turned-actress had only been with her acting agency for 1 month before she'd gotten the opportunity to submit a self-tape for the Netflix hit. It was the very first audition she'd done by tape and had a ton of nerves going in, but in the midst of her frantic prep, she dove into the script and turned out what happened to be a tape good enough to earn her an in-person audition in Korea. What makes this even more impressive is the fact that she was busy doing Fashion Week in New York when the request came to her. But once the callback came, she hopped on a flight to Korea. Nerves ran high for the actress, and the experience of being in the room with the director was intense. She even had to stop drinking coffee because of the anxiety all this caused.
배우할 때는 아직은 많이 서툰 것 같은데 재밌어.
While by this point she was already playing Se-byuk and doing a lot of research on North Korean defectors to prep for her role, the actress wasn't so confident, so she requested dinner with director Hwang to make sure they were on the same page and she was meeting expectations. Of course, she was blowing it out of the water, and Hwang was able to confirm with her that she was a great actress and the perfect one to play the complex and strong character.
연기하면서 인생을 진짜 많이 배운 것 같아요.
If it seems like the Gyeon actor suited his role perfectly, it's probably because the part was actually written specifically for him.
답을 기다리면 되는.
Director Hwang had hoped the incredible actor would accept the offer to play the role, and luckily for everyone, he said yes. The decision was pretty easy since the actor had always wanted to work with the director. The incredible storylines in the script made the answer pretty easy as well. When it came to preparing for the role, the relationship between him and Sang-woo was important, so the actors actually spent a lot of time together bonding and drinking wine. This sounds like pretty great acting prep to us. While he wasn't the first choice to play Ali, Anupam Tripathi definitely made an impact with his portrayal on Squid Game. The actor, originally from India, actually studied acting in South Korea, and in January 2020, a Korean casting agency reached out to him and he sent in his tape for Squid Game.
처럼 나타난 게 아누팜이라는 배우였습니다.
Once he'd had his in-person audition with the director and showed off his emotional acting, the actor was booked. He went hard at work with research and preparing to play a Pakistani character truthfully.
I asked my Pakistani friends and all to help me with the language.
In fact, it was his internal quest all the way from the day they said yes. His enthusiasm and commitment no doubt made him an excellent addition to the show. We're definitely glad he was part of this cast, even if Ali didn't get what he deserved in the series.
Easy in a sense, like, okay, I got the role. And hard because I have to prepare for the role.
Ha-jun was honored to be part of Squid Game, especially because of how much he wanted it when he first went into audition. Having wanted to move towards more serious work instead of the usual rom-coms he'd been performing in, the actor was overwhelmed by the idea of working on such an incredible Korean project with amazing talent attached. He made sure to give it his best in the audition, and luckily, it left an impression. While he knew the police officer was a smaller role, the storyline really intrigued him, and he worked a lot to make sure he explored the internal struggle in his character and depicted how much he tried to achieve justice.
누구야? 당신.
This wasn't the first time the Deok-soo actor and creator of Squid Game have worked together. The two collaborated on the 2017 film The Fortress. Director Hwang had no trouble picturing this incredible actor as the menacing Deok-soo, since the actor often plays gang members. The creator did end up apologizing to the actor for giving him yet another tough credit. We have a feeling the performer was very much okay with this one, though. The fact that the actor is the opposite of his character in real life is a testament to his acting skills as well. Especially considering he didn't start his career until much later in life. The Sang-woo actor actually didn't need to audition. Director Hwang wrote the role with the actor's voice in his head. As with Gyeon, the casting process wasn't so much an audition as a question. An easy one to answer, since the actor had the director and Chung Jae on his list of people he'd hoped to work with one day. He was pretty glad he wound up spending so much time on that set, since he gained valuable insights about acting itself and the industry from his co-star.
현장에 있고 싶었고.
As if the incredible team wasn't enough to be excited about, the Sang-woo actor knew straight away he wanted to see how he could bring the complex character to life. It was definitely meant to be, since his child, nicknamed Baby Squid, was born the day the show was released.
그럼 다음에 얘기해.
We know him as player 276, but the Filipino actor Christian Lagahit originally auditioned to play Ali. Unfortunately, that audition didn't pan out, but something about his performance must have captured the attention of the casting team. Since after not hearing anything for a while, the actor got a call with a straight offer to be part of the show. It might have been a minor role, but it was a major win for the actor, as he's been living in South Korea since 2015 and felt a lot of pride getting to represent minorities on screen. He also found a new friend in the person who did end up playing Ali. The two actors were often goofing around and filming each other on set.
Say hi to my vlog brother.
While Mignon might seem like a smaller role, the character was actually extremely important for the director, and he wanted to make sure he had the perfect actor to do it justice. So, he jumped at asking this special actress to portray the part of Player 212. The show hadn't even been totally greenlit, but the director reached out to check on the actress's schedule, and when the show was ready to go, the contracts were signed. The 212 actress had an emotional time reading the script, and while she had mixed feelings, it got her excited, and she was eventually thankful for the whole dreamlike experience.
너 생각보다 잘해. 웬만한 놈들보다 힘도 세고.
Actor Carlo Aquino really regretted not being able to be part of Squid Game, especially after he'd been specifically requested by the director to audition. The actor had given such a memorable performance in a past project, Squid Game's director requested he do a tape for the part of Ali, one which he really did suit and actually booked the job for. Unfortunately, because travel restrictions were in place, Aquino wound up not being able to film the show. Lucky for us, Anupam Tripathi jumped into the role, but still, a tough break for Aquino. While he didn't end up in the series, he still managed to get himself a green tracksuit. Since there aren't many foreign actors in Korea, the pandemic travel restrictions really proved to be a challenge when the team was seeking out performers to play the VIPs in the show.
거의 연기가 잘 되는 외국인들이 쉽게 없더라고요, 한국에.
VIP number 4, the one we hear speak the most, was found and brought over from Thailand to shoot, while the rest were really selected because they didn't have that many options. These extras auditioned and eventually booked the jobs, playing the despicable VIPs. The creator of Squid Game definitely lucked out in terms of the cast who signed on to be part of this special project. Which character would you want to play?